Namaskaram and good evening, everybody. On behalf of the SSVT Cultural Committee, I would like to wish you all a very happy Vinayaka Chaturthi. I would like to welcome you all to this evening's Harikatha program. The topic of the Harikatha is Namami Tam Vinayakam. The Harikatha is going to be performed by Kum Aradhana Anand of Bengaluru. She will be accompanied by Haritha Narayanan on violin and Bhuvanasundaran on Mridangam. Give you a brief introduction to the artist. Kumari Aradhana Anand is a Harikatha student of Vidushi Srimati Vishaka Hari. She was first exposed to the Harikatha art form at the age of 9. She has been learning Carnatic music, vocal, from Vidushi Srimati Lalgudi Rajalakshmi for over 10 years. She has been giving Harikatha performances in Tamil, Sanskritam and English. Aradhana is a second-year college student pursuing a bachelor's degree in data sciences from IIT Madras. She is also doing an integrated master's in Vyakarana from Chinmaya Vishwavidya Peeth. She is also a student of Professor K. Ramasubramanian. Aradhana was the gold medalist for 2 consecutive years at the National Sanskrit Olympiad. She was a speaker at the International Conference on Exploring the History of Indian Mathematics, held at IIT Gandhinagar when she was in class 10. Here she gave talks in Sanskritam on topics related to ancient Indian mathematics. Please welcome Kumari Aradhana Anand. On violin, we have Kumari Haritha Narayanan. Haritha hails from a family of musicians and had her initial training under Vidwan B. Ananthakrishnan and Vidushi Dr. R. Hemalata. Presently, she is under the tutelage of Vidwan Sri Delhi P. Sundararajan. She has been in the concert platform for the past 6 years. She has performed in all leading sabhas in Chennai, including the Madras Music Academy as part of the Spirit of Youth Festival and other places, which includes Sri Shanmukhananda Sabha of Mumbai. She has won the first prize in music competitions held by the Mylapore Fine Arts Club and the Indian Fine Arts Society. She is a recipient of the Yuvakala Vipanchi Award from the Vipanchi Natyalaya Trust. She is presently pursuing her master's degree. Please welcome Haritha. Sri Bhuvanasundaran has been learning to play the Mridangam from Vidwan Sri Arjun Ganesh. He has been learning for the past 11 years. He performed his Arangetram in the year 2018 for Vidwan Sri Sandeep Narayanan. He has been selected for the CCRT scholarship among other awards that he has received. He has applied for AIR gradation. He has been playing professionally for the last 6 years. Please welcome Bhuvanasundaran. Please enjoy the Harikatha and thank you.
नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः नमो नमः सद्गुरुभ्यः सद्गुरुभ्यो नमो नमः हरे रामेति कृष्णेति नाम संकीर्तनं सदा लोकक्षेमाय कुर्वन्तं प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे प्रेमिकं सद्गुरुं भजे मुदाकरात्तमोदकं सदा विमुक्तिसाधकं कलाधरावतंसकं विलासि लोकरक्षकम् अनायकैकनायकं विनाशिते भदैत्यकौ नताशुभाशुनाशकम् नमामि तं विनायकम् नमामि तं विनायकम् नमामि तं विनायकम् सिद्धिविनायकम् अनीशम् सिद्धिविनायकम् अनीशम् सिद्धिविनायकम् अनीशम् चिन्तयाम्यहं सिद्धिविनायकम् अनीशम् चिन्तयाम्यहं प्रसिद्धगणनायकं विशिष्टार्थदायकं वरं सिद्धिविनायकम् अनीशम् चिन्तयाम्यहं प्रसिद्धगणनायकं विशिष्टार्थदायकं वरं सिद्धिविनायकम् अनीशम् सिद्ध यक्ष किन्नरादिसेवितम् सिद्ध यक्ष किन्नरादिसेवितम् सिद्ध यक्ष किन्नरादिसेवितम् अखिल जगत् प्रसिद्ध मूलपङ्कज मध्यस्थं मोदकहस्तं सिद्धिविनायकम् अनीशम् चिन्तयाम्यहं प्रसिद्धगणनायकं विशिष्टार्थदायकं वरं सिद्धिविनायकम् अनीशम् भाद्रपदमास चतुर्थ्यां ब्राह्मणादि पूजितं पाशाङ्कुशधरं छत्रचामर परिवीजितं रौद्रभावरहितं दासजनहृदय विराजितम् रौद्रभावरहितं दासजनहृदय विराजितं रौहिणेयानुजार्चितम् इहानवर्जितम् अद्रिराजसुतात्मजम् अनन्तगुरुगुहाग्रजम् अद्रिराजसुतात्मजम् अनन्तगुरुगुहाग्रजं भद्रप्रदपदाम्बुजं भासमानचतुर्भुजं सिद्धिविनायकम् अनीशम् चिन्तयाम्यहं प्रसिद्धगणनायकं विशिष्टार्थदायकं वरं सिद्धिविनायकम् अनीशम् Namaskaram. Very happy to be performing this Harikatha on the auspicious occasion of Vinayaka Chaturthi for Sri Shiva Vishnu Temple, SSVT, Maryland. The topic of today's Harikatha is Namami Tam Vinayakam, which literally means obeisance to Lord Vinayaka. In our Sampradayam, Lord Vinayaka, Lord Ganapathi, has a very special place. He is referred to as Vighna Vinashaka, Vighneshwara, the destroyer of all obstacles. For any undertaking to be successful, the basic requirement is that the task be obstacle-free. And that is why at the commencement of every single task, we pray to Lord Vinayaka, who is Vighna Vinashaka, the destroyer of all obstacles. In today's topic, Namami Tam Vinayakam, this phrase occurs in the first verse of the very famous Mahaganesha Pancharatnam, a stotram composed by Jagadguru Srimad Adi Shankara Bhagavat Padacharya. This stotram commences, the first verse begins with Mudakaratta Modakam. This is the verse with which we started our Harikatha. And it is towards the end of this verse that the phrase Namamitam Vinayakam occurs. The entire Mahaganesha Pancharatnam is composed in a meter, in a Sanskrita Chandas known as Pancha Chamaram. And interestingly, the composition which we just rendered, Siddhi Vinayaka Manisham, is also composed in a ragam which in the Dikshitar Sampradayam is known as Chamaram. Every year, a Vishesha Puja, a special puja is performed to Lord Vinayaka on the Vinayaka Chaturthi. And in fact, in the Siddhi Vinayaka Manisham composition, Sri Muthuswami Dikshitar mentions this right at the beginning of the Charanam. He says, Bhadrapada Masa Chaturthyam. On the Chaturthi Tithi of the Bhadrapada month, that is the Vinayaka Chaturthi, we all perform a special puja to Lord Vinayaka. In today's Harikatha, we shall see different stories which are based on the adjectives employed in the Mudakaratta Modakam verse. This verse contains 7 adjectives, 7 Visheshanams describing Lord Ganapathi, and finally concludes as Namami Tam Vinayakam, obeisance to that Lord Ganapathi. So in today's Harikatha, with the blessings of my Gurus and Bhagavat Kripa, we shall see different stories which are based on these 7 Visheshanams, these 7 adjectives which are there in the Mudakaratta Modakam verse. Mudakaratta Modakam, Mudakaratta Modakam, Mudakaratta Modakam. This is the first Visheshanam, first adjective. Yasya kare modakam attam vartate saha karatta modakaha. Ayam Ganeshaha tu muda santoshena karatta modakaha. In this Visheshanam, Ganapathi is described as the one who very happily holds in his hand the modakam. Now what is the modaka? Modayati iti modakam, that which gives happiness, that which gives joy, is referred to as modaka. Modaka generally refers to a sweet which when savored does give us immense joy. And since Ganapathi is famous for holding that sweet in his hand, he is called Mudakaratta Modakaha. Another interpretation can be given for this Visheshanam. Modayati iti modakam, that which gives happiness is modaka, and hence, since Ganesha is ever willing to, ever ready to bestow upon his devotees what brings them happiness and what is good for them, he is known as Modaka Hastam Muni Jana Hrit Kamalastham Mooladhara Chaturdala Pankaja Madhyastham Modaka Hastam Muni Jana Hrit Kamalastham Bala Chandram Sumukham Karuna Sandram धरं पद्मकरं सुन्दरं नीलग्रीवकुमारं नीरदशोभारं पालितभक्तं धीरम् अपारं वारं वारं कळभमुखं धुण्डि गणेशं भज रे चित्त कावेरी तटस्थितं सावेरी रागनुतं करी कळभमुखम्. So in this composition, Modaka Hastam, Ganapati is referred to as Modaka Hasta since he holds in his hand both the sweet Modaka and is also ever willing to bestow upon his devotees what is good and what brings them joy. Among the several devotees who have received such a blessing from Lord Ganapati, one such devotee was a very famous grandmother. Sri Mahaperiyava in Daivattin Kural writes about a very unique grandmother and a very unique little child. Usually, little children are full of enthusiasm, energy, and they love running around from place to place, from here to there. On the other hand, as one ages, one tends to prefer to relax rather than continuously running around from place to place. On the other hand, here was a grandmother, a unique grandmother, and a unique little child who were exactly the opposite. This little child would not move an inch from the place he sat. However, this grandmother, this old grandmother, would continuously go on running from place to place, from village to village, spreading her divine words of wisdom. The beauty in this was that it was through the blessings of this little child that the old grandmother derived the strength to run around from place to place. Who was this old grandmother and who is this little child? Sri Mahaperiyava writes that this grandmother was none other than the great Tamil saint poetess Avvaiyar, and the little unique child is none other than Pillayar or Lord Vinayaka. When Avvaiyar was a Kumari, she was extremely beautiful. When she came of a marriageable age, her parents fixed an alliance for her. It was at that time that Avvaiyar went running to her Ishta Daivam, Lord Ganapathi, and earnestly prayed to him. What did she pray for? Her prayer was something extremely unique. Being such a beautiful Kumari, she earnestly prayed to Lord Vinayaka to instantly transform her to an old lady. Perhaps Avvaiyar did not want to get married and subsequently become a grandmother of just one household, but wanted to become the grandmother of the entire world and spread her divine teachings to one and all. On praying like this to her Ishta Daivam Lord Ganapathi, Vinayaka, being Mudakaratta Modaka, the one who bestows what gives happiness to his devotees, instantly blessed her with this Ashirvadam, and that is how the young Kumari transformed into the old grandmother of all, Avvaiyar. Continuing with Avvaiyar's story, Avvaiyar every day used to perform an elaborate puja for her Ishta Daivam Ganapati. One day, two Mahanubhavas, Sundaramurti and Seraman Perumal, decided to go on a Kailasa Yatra. They thought of taking Avvaiyar too along with them for the Yatra, and hence they approached Avvaiyar. Avvaiyar at that point was performing her Ganapati Puja. On coming to Avvaiyar, they said, "Avvaiyar, if you could complete your Vinayaka Puja a little faster, then you too could join us on the Kailasa Yatram." That was when Avvaiyar looked at them and said, "Do I have to hasten my Ganapati Puja for Kailasa Yatram? Why do I need to do that? Vinayaka himself is my Kailasam. He is Sada Vimukti Sadhakam. He is Sada Vimukti Sadhakaha, the one who enables Vimukti. He is my Kailasam. And hence I request you to carry on. I cannot hasten my Ganapati Puja and come anywhere. Saying so, she continued her elaborate Vinayaka Puja, offering different fragrant flowers and wonderfully tasty variety of fruits and singing in ecstasy. We have the Vinayaka Ragaval composed by Avvaiyar. When she finished her puja to her heart's content, Lord Ganapati, Lord Vinayaka, who Sada Vimukti Sadhaka, appeared before her and with his huge tumbikai, huge trunk, just lifted Avvaiyar and directly placed her at Kailasam, even before Sundaramurti and Seraman Perumal could arrive there. Such a Mudakaratta Modakaha and Sada Vimukti Sadhakaha is our Lord Ganapati. Moving on to the next Visheshanam, Kaladharavatamsakaha. Kaladharastu Parameshwaraha. Parameshwarasya Aparamekam Nama. Avatamsakaha ityukte bhushanam. Ayam Ganeshaha Kaladharasya tannama Parameshwarasya bhushanam ityasmat Kaladharavatamsakoyam Ganeshaha. Lord Ganapati is like the bhushanam or the ornament for Sakshat Parameshwara himself. That is the meaning of this Visheshanam. Shri Bhaskaracharya, one of the very great Indian mathematicians and astronomers of the 12th century, has written his magnum opus Siddhanta Shiromani. In Leelavati, which is a part of the Siddhanta Shiromani, he commences it with a Mangala Padyam on Lord Ganapati, describing a very beautiful Bala Leela. This verse, along with its meaning and how it is to be interpreted, have been taught to me by my Mananiya Acharyaha, Professor K. Ramasubramanian Varyaha. Once, Lord Parameshwara was seated in his beautiful abode, the Kailasa Parvata. Suddenly, he noticed at a distance a young Korku little boy coming slowly running towards him. Who was that boy? He looked out to see. It was none other than our Gananatha Paratpara Shankara. Gananatha Paratpara Shankara. Gananatha Paratpara Shankara. Gamavari Nidhi Rajani Kara. Phaniraja Kankana Vighna Nivarana Shambhava Shri Tyagarajanuta Giriraja Sutta Tanaya Sadaya Giriraja Sutta Tanaya Suranatha Mukharjita Padayoga Suranatha Mukharjita Padayoga Suranatha Mukharjita Padayoga Paripalayamami Bharaja Mukha Paripalayamami Bharaja Mukha Giriraja Sutta Tanaya Sadaya Giriraja Sutta Tanaya. This is a composition of Sri Tyagaraja Swamigal in Ragam Bangala. Here, he describes Ganapati as Giriraja Sutta Tanaya, the son of the daughter of the mountains, Parvati Devi. The very tune of this composition seems to resemble how Korku Ganapati would have come slowly running towards his father Parameshwara. Gananatha Paratpara Shankara Gamavari Nidhi Rajani Kara. So Ganapati comes like this, running slowly towards Parameshwara, and Lord Shiva, on seeing his beloved son Ganapati, Bala Ganapathi, immediately with full of affection and love, carries him and places him on his lap. What did this little Ganapati do then? This is what Sri Bhaskaracharya beautifully describes in his verse. He says, Leela Galalulalola Kala Vyala Vilasine विलासिने कालव्यालविलासिने लुलल्लोल कालव्यालविलासिने लीलागललुलल्लोल कालव्यालविलासिने गणेशाय नमो नील कमलामलकान्तये नील कमलामलकान्तये. In this verse, Bhaskaracharya describes Ganapati as Neela Kamalamala Kantihi. He whose Kanti, whose radiance resembles that of a beautifully blossomed blue lotus. Now we all are aware of this very famous verse, Shuklam Baradharam Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam. In this verse, the term Shashivarnam is employed, which literally means he whose hue is similar to that of moonlight. This being the case, how is Bhaskaracharya describing Ganapati to have the Kanti similar to that of a blue lotus? The answer to this question, as my Acharya would say, is to be got by analyzing the first half of this verse using two alankaras, artha alankaras, namely Tadguna Alankara and Kavya Linga Alankara. Alankaras are basically figures of speech which are of basically two types, Artha Alankaras and Shabda Alankaras, those which are based on sense and based on sound. Coming back to our story, Bala Ganapathi, seated on the lap of his father Parameshwara and looking at his father with those eyes brimming with innocence, was suddenly attracted by a hara, an ornament adorning the neck of Lord Parameshwara. It is very common that children are always attracted to these chains and haras which their parents wear. And they make it a point, whenever they are carried, they make it a point to first get their tiny tender hands onto that chain and grab them. Similarly, Bala Ganapathi was very attracted to one ornament, one hara of Lord Parameshwara. What was this hara? Neither was it a hara made out of gold, nor a one made out of pearls or diamonds, but it was Kalavyala Vilasine. Kalavyala, it was the dark bluish black serpent wonderfully coiled around the neck of Parameshwara. This serpent was Lulallola Kalavyalaha. It was Lulallola, it was moving here and there, up and down, left and right. And on seeing this, a twinkle arose in the eye of Ganapati. And he was so amazed looking at that serpent. He said, "Hey, look at how it's moving here and there. Let me try to catch it." And immediately, Leela Galalulallola Kalavyala Vilasine. This Bala Ganapati started playing with that snake which was itself playfully moving around Parameshwara's neck. Now, when children are very happy and very excited, their cheeks tend to glow, tend to shine like mirrors. Similarly, Bala Ganapathi, supremely excited and filled with joy on trying to catch that serpent which was moving here and there and here and there, he too was filled with immense joy and happiness that his cheeks started shining like bright mirrors. Now, how does this resolve the contradiction, the apparent contradiction in terms of the Kanti of Ganapati? Well, since Ganapati's cheeks were like mirrors, the blue color from the bluish black serpent coiled around the neck of Parameshwara started reflecting on these mirror-like cheeks, chubby cheeks of Ganapati, and hence his Neela Kamalamalakaantaye. And hence, though being Shashivarna, he is here described as Neela Kamalamalakaanti because of the reflection seen on his wonderful cheeks. That is why, in fact, since his Kanti is described like a blue lotus, like a blue Nalinam, that is why we rendered this verse in Nalina Kanti Raga. And this Bala Ganapathi being Neela Kamalamala Kanti was like a beautiful ornament or an avatamsaka adorning the lap of Parameshwara as Kaladhara avatamsakaha. Now moving on to the next Visheshanam, Vilasi Loka Rakshakam. He who playfully protects the entire world. He is Vilasi Loka Rakshakaha. Now we shall see one story illustrating how this Leela was performed by Lord Ganapathi. Matkukshi susthamakhilam jagaditi sarvan prabodhayitum. Matkukshi susthamakhilam jagaditi sarvan prabodhayitum. Brihadudaratam kripam dhe. Brihadudaratam kripam dhe. Dhatse kim karivarasyattvam. Dhatse kim karivarasyattvam. Once, the mighty king Ravana performed severe penance in order to please Lord Parameshwara. He desired to please Lord Shiva and thereby obtain from him a very special lingam called the Atma Lingam. This Atma Lingam he desired to obtain from Parameshwara and subsequently install it at his capital city Lankapuri. So he set out to perform a ghora tapasya and please Lord Parameshwara. Lord Shiva, being Ashutosha, he who is pleased very quickly, appeared before Ravana and asked him, "Hey Ravana, varam vrinishva, ask for what you desire." That was when Ravana, Baddhanjali's son, with folded hands, requested to obtain the Atma Lingam. Parameshwara, while granting the Atma Lingam to Ravana, cautioned him of a very important fact. He said, "O Ravana, this lingam, Atma Lingam, is a very special one. It also has a very unique property. Once placed on the ground, it will be impossible to move this lingam from that spot." Now Ravana was so relieved that this information was told to him by Parameshwara, since he desired to install this lingam only at Lanka. So he became very cautious not to let this lingam touch the ground. Ravana proceeded back towards Lanka and on the way started getting very worried suddenly. The Sandhya Kalam was approaching and it was time for him to perform his Sandhya Vandanam. As is well known, Sandhya Vandanam is a Nitya Karma, a karma which is to be performed every day without fail. Now Ravana was in a fix. How was he to do his Sandhya Vandanam, as well as make sure that this lingam doesn't touch the ground? There was no question of missing the Sandhya Vandanam, but it was not possible for him to perform the Sandhya Vandanam as well as have the Atma Lingam with himself. When he was deep in thoughts trying to find a solution to this problem, to his surprise and happiness, he found a little Balaka coming towards him. He immediately called on to that Balaka and said, "Hey Balaka, could you do me a favor? Could you just hold this Atma Lingam? I shall go and finish my Sandhya Vandanam, come back and take it from you. But beware, do not place this lingam on the ground." The Balaka agreed to be of assistance to Ravana, but had a condition. He said, "You see, in case I have to leave, I shall call you thrice. If I don't see you return or don't see you respond, even after I call you thrice, I shall just place the lingam on the ground and happily proceed." Now Ravana said, No, don't do that. You see, I will come back very soon. And he proceeded to do his Sandhya Vandanam. Now this little Chatura Balaka, waiting for that moment when Ravana would go and start his Sandhya Vandanam, immediately started calling out, "Ravana! Ravana, Ravana, and since Ravana could not come back, happily placed that Atmalingam on the ground and proceeded. Now, Ravana was so disappointed on later seeing this. He did not realize that the Balaka who had come was not any ordinary Kumara, but was Sakshat Kailasanatha Kumaram. Kailasanatha Kumaram Kartikeya Manoharam. Kailasanatha Kumaram Kartikeya Manoharam. Halasya Kshetra Vegavati Tataviharam Haram. Kolahala Guru Guha Sahitam Koti Maralavanyahitam. Kolahala Guru Guha Sahitam Koti Maralavanyahitam. Mala Kankanadidharan Masha Vallabhambaramanam Ekadatam Bhaje. Kolahala Guru Guha Sahitam Koti Maralavanyahitam. Mala Kankanadidharanam Masha Vallabhambaraman Ekadatam Bhaje. Ekaneka Phalapradam Ekadatam Bhajeham. Kailasanatha Kumaram. The Balaka who had come was no ordinary Kumara, but was Sakshat Kailasanatha Kumara. Lord Ganapathi, the son of Parameshwara, was the one who had come in the guise of this little Balaka and performed this wonderful Chatura Leela. In fact, upon hearing that Parameshwara had granted the Atma Lingam to Ravana, the Devas were very scared. They wanted somehow that this lingam is taken away from Ravana before he could install it at Lanka and thus become invincible. They thus prayed to Lord Vinayaka, who is Anayakaikanayakam. The next Visheshanam in the Mudakaratta Modakam verse, Anayakaikanayakam. He who is the Ekanayaka for all those in the world, including those who don't have any other Nayaka. Anayakanamapi Ekanayakoyam Ganeshah Vinayakah. Ataha eva Vinayakah iti tasya nama. That he who doesn't have another Nayaka to himself, but who is the Ekanayaka for the whole world. To this Vinayaka, all the Devas went and prayed and requested him to somehow do some Leela and do the Vilasi Loka Rakshanam. Immediately Ganesha came in the form of this boy and performed this Chatura Leela and took the lingam from Ravana and happily placed it on the ground before he could return. And that Kshetram, the place where Ganapathi placed this Atma Lingam, is the famous Gokarna Kshetram in Karnataka, and that is why Ganesha is referred as Yachaturiyenaiva hi Lokanudhartum Ambikanathah Gokarne sthitimakarot Gokarne sthitimakarot Lokahitam tam pranaumi Vignesham Vignesham Vignesham. This is a composition of Sringeri Jagadguru Shri Sachidananda Shivabhinava Nrsimha Bharati Mahaswamigal. He has composed a stotram called Ganadhipa Stutihi on the Gokarna Ganapathi, the Mahaganapati at Gokarna Kshetra. And he concludes this stotram with this verse where he says, Yet chaturyena, by whose tact, by whose chaturya, Parameshwara himself decided to reside at Gokarna Kshetram, obeisance to that Lord Vinayaka, to that Vigneshwara, who is Lokahita, the bestower of welfare to the entire world. Now, having performed this wonderful Chatura Leela and having helped all the Devas and done the Vilasi Loka Rakshanam, all the Devas go to Ganapati with folded hands singing his praise as Kripa Sindhu Sundara Sabnayak, Kripa Sindhu Sundara Sabnayak, Shankara Suvana Bhavani Nandan, Gaiye Ganapati Jagavandan, Gaiye Ganapati Jagavandan. Sindhi Sadana Gajavadana Vinayak, Kripa Sindhu Sundara Sabnayak, Kripa Sindhu Sundara Sabnayak, Shankara Suvana Bhavani Nandan, Gaiye Ganapati Jagavandan, Gaiye Ganapati Jagavandan. This is a composition of Sri Tulasi Dasa on Ganapati. Now Lord Vigneshwara, having done the Vilasi Loka Rakshanam, having been the Vilasi Loka Rakshakaha and the Anayakaika Nayaka, did this beautiful Leela and thus installed the Atmalingam at Gokarna Kshetram. Now moving on, the next Visheshanam, the next adjective in the Mudakaratta Modakam verse, Vinashitebha Daityakam. He who destroyed the demon who came in the form of an Ibha or a Gaja, referring to the Gajasura Samhara. Now, as mentioned earlier, Lord Ganapati is the destroyer of all Vignas. In this context, Bhoja Raja in his Champu Ramayana commences with a Mangala Padyam on Ganapati and he says, Lakshmin tanotu nitaramitaranapeksham Angridvayan nigamashakhi shikha pravalam Hairambam amburuhadambara chauryanighnam Vignadri bheda shatadhara dhuraldharanah Vinashitebha Daityaka. In this context, Lord Ganapati is Vighna Vinashaka, the destroyer of all obstacles. In fact, the very Karanam of the Utpatti, the creation, the Utpatti of Lord Vinayaka was for the destruction of a Vighna. When Bhandasura, a Rakshasa, an Asura named Bhandasura, along with his Sainyam, waged war against the Devas seek the help of Devi Lalitambika. And there was this Vishukra, an Asura called Vishukra, in the Sainyam of Bhandasura, who performed a lot of tapasya and then created a huge yantram, a Vighna yantra, and placed it in Devi's Sainyam. Now what did this yantram do? This was a Vighna yantram which disabled the Devi's Sainyam from being able to fight, from being able to perform the Yuddham. And then Devi, in order to destroy this Vighnam, just looked at Parameshwara. She looked at Parameshwara, and through that drishti itself, Kataksha Matrena, through that drishti came Mahaganapathi. That is why in the Lalita Sahasranamam there is a nama for Lalitambika which says Kameshwara Mukhaloka Kalpita Shri Ganeshwara. Kameshwara Mukhaloka Kalpita Shri Ganeshwara. She who just saw Lord Parameshwara, and that resulted in the Utpatti of Mahaganapathi. And Mahaganapathi immediately came and in one stroke just destroyed that huge Vighna Yantram, and that is why the next name for Lalitambika in the Sahasranama is Mahaganesha Nirbhinna Vighna Yantra Praharshita. Once Ganapati in one stroke destroyed the Vighna Yantra, Lalitambika was she was filled with happiness. She was so happy that her son had removed this major obstacle. And that is why in the Champu Ramayanam also, in the verse which we just rendered, Ganapati is known as Vighnadri Bheda Shatadhara Dhurandharaha, or he who is like the Vajra Yudha when it comes to crushing down the mountain-like obstacles. Similarly, there was this Asura called Gajasura who was tormenting the entire world. And when everybody sought the help of Mahaganapati, Ganapati did the Vinashitebha Daityaka, or he did the destruction of this Asura, Gajasura. There is another interpretation of this Visheshanam where this Ibha Daitya can be thought of as all the asuric qualities, the asuric qualities that are there within a person, especially that of arrogance or garva. And since Mahaganapati destroys such qualities, he is known as Vinashitebha Daityaka. He is the destroyer of asuric-like qualities which take the form of Kunjara, or which take the form of an elephant. And since Ganapati does the Bhanjanam of those Kunjaras, he is known as Kunjara Bhanjana Chaturataram. Kunjara Bhanjana Chaturataram Guru Guhagrajam Pranavakaram. Kunjara Bhanjana Chaturataram Guru Guhagrajam Pranavakaram. Gajananayutam Ganeshwaram Bhajami Satatam Sureshwaram Shri Gajananayutam Ganeshwaram. Chaturataram Guru Guhagrajam Pranavakaram. Kunjara Bhanjana Chaturataram Guru Guhagrajam Pranavakaram. Gajananayutam Ganeshwaram Bhajami Sadatam Sureshwaram Shri Gajananayutam Ganeshwaram. Chaturataram Nidadapama Kunjara Bhanjana Chaturataram. Dani Gari Sari Sanida Sanidapama Kunjara Bhanjana Chaturataram. పద నిరిస సనిద పద పమగరి కుంజర భంజన చతురతర కరం దని పదని గరి సని దని సరి సని ద సని ద పమ గమ పమ పద ద పద ని ద సని ద ని ద పద పమ ప కుంజర చతురతర కరం నిద ద పమ గరి గమ పద పద ని సని ద పద గరి సని ద గరి సని ద రి సని ద పద ని కుంజర భంజన చతురతర కరం నిద ద పమ గరి గమ పద పద ని సని ద పద ని సరి స గరి సని ద ని రి సని ద పద సని ద పమ కుంజర భంజన చతురతర కరం దని ద ద ద ద దని దని ద ద ద దని ద ద పమ గరి గమ పమ గరి గమ పద పమ గరి గమ పద ని సని ని 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 ద పద ని స స స ని ద ని స ని ద ని సరి రి స ని ద ని సరి గమ గరి స ని ద ని గరి ద ని రి స ద ని స ని ద పద గరి స ని ద రి స ని ద ప స ని ద ప మ గరి స ని ద స ని ద రి స ని ద ప ని ద ప స ని ద ప మ గ మ ప ద ప మ ప ద ని ద ప ద ని స రి గ మ ప ద ప మ ప ద మ ప ద ని ద ప ద ని ప ద ని స రి గ రి స ని ద రి స ని ద ప స ని ద ప మ గ రి స ని ద స ని ద రి స ని ద ప ని ద ప స ని ద ప మ కుంజర భంజన చతురతర కరం चतुरतरकरं गुरुगुहाग्रजं प्रणवाकारं गजाननयुतं गणेश्वरं भजामि सततं सुरेश्वरं श्रीगजाननयुतं गणेश्वरम् So, Mahaganapathi did the Kunjara Bhanjana or the Vinashitebha Daityaka. He is the destroyer of both Gajasura as well as the Asuric qualities which take the form of Kunjaras. Now, we shall conclude with a story for the last Visheshanam here, which is Natashubhashu Nashakam. He who destroys the Ashubha Pravrittis of those who worship him. There is this Ganapati in Kumbakonam who is known as Karumbayira Vinayakar. Now, there is a story, an interesting story behind why he got this name, Karumbayira Ganapathi. There was this sugarcane vendor who was extremely stingy. He would every day pass through this Sannidhi of Ganapati and pray to Lord Ganapati saying, my business should just flourish, I should gain so much profit, Ganapati, you should bless me, you should bless me. He would pray every single day. But not even a single day, not even on a single day, he would offer a single sugar cane as Naivedyam for Ganapati. As is well known, elephants generally love sugar cane. Even children tend to love sugar canes. Now Ganapati is both an elephant and a child. He's an elephant-headed child. But this man was so stingy, he would never offer even a single sugarcane as Naivedyam, but would always pray that his business should flourish. His business, though, was not doing well. He was running into a lot of loss, and none of his sugarcanes were being sold out. One day, there came a little boy, a little young Pathashala Balaka, who came there next to the sugarcane cart, and shouldn't he even inform the vendor? But he pulled out one sugarcane and started swiftly running away. The sugarcane vendor, so stingy as he was, could not bear the separation of even one sugarcane. Though some boy has taken it away, he did not leave it like that. Went on chasing the Balaka and said, how dare you come and just snatch away a sugarcane out of nowhere? Let me catch you and teach you a lesson. And he goes on chasing the Balaka. The Balaka went on running, and this fellow chasing, running, and chasing. And the Balaka, along with the Ikshu Dandam in his hand, just merged into the Sannidhi of Ganapati as Vidhrite Ikshu Dandam Nijavamakara Vidhrite Tekshudandam. In Vatapi Ganapatim, Muthuswami Dikshitar mentions, Ganapati is Vidhritekshu Danda, the one holding the Ikshu Danda, the sugar cane in his hand. This Balaka who was running just merged with that Sannidhi and stood as Vidhritekshu Danda, and on seeing this, the sugarcane vendor who was swiftly chasing suddenly stopped and was just choked with emotions. Ganapati, was it you who came in the form of that Balaka and played this Leela with me? He was completely transformed. Look at how stingy I was. I did not offer even one sugarcane to you on even a single day. Because of that, you had to come in the guise of a Balaka and steal just one sugarcane from me. Look at how stingy I was. From now on, you don't have to come as any Balaka and steal anything. All these 1,000 sugarcanes, Ayiram Karumbu, all these 1,000 sugarcanes, I offer as a Naivedyam to you. And from that day onwards, every single day, these 1,000 sugarcanes were offered as a Naivedyam to this Lord Ganapati by the sugarcane vendor, and hence he got the name Karumbu Ayira Vinayakar. Now one may wonder, did his business run into further loss? He has been giving this for free as Naivedyam and then distributing it to children. Well, that is not the case. Ganapati being Anekadantam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahe, the one who gives so much to his bhaktas, through the Ashirvadam of Ganapati, the sugarcane vendor's business from the time he started doing the Naivedya flourished and he gained immense profit. So, Ganapati did the Nata Ashubha Ashunashakam. He swiftly cut out that Ashubha Pravriti of that stinginess of somebody who used to pray to him, and hence he is the Nata Ashubha Ashunashaka. So through this Harikatha, we first saw Mudakarata Modaka Sada Vimukti Sadhaka, both with the story of Avvaiyar, and then Kaladharavatamsaka with the verse of Bhaskaracharya, Vilasi Loka Rakshakam and Anayakaikanayakam through Gokarna Ganapathi, and Vinashitebha Daityaka through Gajasura, as well as annihilation of the Asuric qualities, and finally Natashubhashunashakam through Karumbaira Vinayakar, and finally to such a Ganapati, Namami Vinayakam. Obeisance to that Lord Ganapati. May Ganapati, Mahaganapati bestow upon all of us Guru Kripa, Satsangam and Samasta San Mangalani. With this prayer we shall now conclude. Jaya Ganesha Gananatha Dayanidhi Sakala Vighna Kar Dur Hamare. Jaya Ganesha Gananatha Dayanidhi Sakala Vighna Kar Dur Hamare. प्रथम धरे जो ध्यान तुम्हारो, प्रथम धरे जो ध्यान तुम्हारो, किसके पूर्ण कारज सारे, किसके पूर्ण कारज सारे. जय गणेश गणनाथ दयानिधि सकल विघ्न कर दूर हमारे. गौरी नंदन गजानना विघ्न विनाशक निरंजना. गौरी नंदन गजानना विघ्न विनाशक निरंजना. मूषिक वाहन शुभानना मंगलम शुभ मंगलम. मूषिक वाहन शुभानना मंगलम शुभ मंगलम. मंगलम शुभ मंगलम. मंगलम
Namaskaram. On behalf of the SSVT Cultural Committee, I would like to thank Kum Aradhana Anand for giving this excellent Harikatha on this topic on the occasion of Ganesh Chaturthi. I would like to thank her team of Haritha, Narayanan and Bhuvanasundaran as well for providing an excellent accompaniment. I would like to thank some of the sponsors who helped bring this program to us. It is greatly appreciated. Our next program is going to be the Swati Thirunal Day, which will be held on September 25th. It will be an all-day program. The details will be provided by email as well as on our Facebook page. Thank you and good night.